Hey everybody, I'm Elizabeth Hines from OurPaleoFamily.com. Welcome to Cooking Dinner. So we did a whole bunch of these cooking videos over on the KidCast Facebook page, and I always did those at like 7:30 or 8 o'clock at night. And I was thinking about starting up again this year. I know it's the end of February, we're a little bit late, but I thought, why not just cook when we cook dinner? So I remember this TV show way back in the day when Food Network was new, and Sarah Moulton, who was I think the editor-in-chief of Gourmet Magazine, she had this show, it was Cooking Live with her, and I thought, oh, that's a really cool idea, so that's what we're doing tonight. So you're cooking live with me. It would be fun to know if you're watching, and if you are cooking along with me. I sent out the recipe last night. I'm trying to get this up on my phone, and I'm going to turn the volume all the way down so that if there are any comments, I can see your comments and answer you. But we are making tonight Paleo Egg Roll in a bowl, which is a recipe I've seen so much on my Facebook feed and in on my Pinterest board, or whatever that's called. And this is from Jay's Baking Me Crazy. And I don't know this person. I think that's a really fun name for a website. And it's the recipe that comes up all the time. Hers is the picture that I see. So we're making two basic things. We're making this egg roll in a bowl, which is like stir-fried bunch of vegetables and some pork. So basically the filling of an egg roll. And then we're making her recipe for a paleo sweet and sour sauce to go on top. And I actually have on my website, OurPaleoFamily.com, I have an AIP, which stands for Autoimmune Protocol, tortilla recipe. And I'm not making those tonight, but you could make those tortillas, I was thinking, and they would either be great. You could actually make an egg roll and seal it with a little bit of water and fry those. That would be awesome. Or even just make those and cut them into strips and fry them so you have like a little something crispy to go with your egg roll in a bowl if you wanted to do that. But we're not. We're going to make some white rice tonight. So I'm going to get everything started. My cameraman is going to come and move the camera for me. So I have in here chicken broth. It's about, 2 or 3 cups. And I'm going to make some rice. If you ever see a recipe that calls for water and broth would work, always use broth. So I always cook my rice in chicken broth. So I've got that going. And then in this skillet, I'm going to start cooking my pork in just a second. But first I'm going to get my sauce started because I have to cook some onions. So I'm going to turn that on. And for the sauce, she says a large onion and about a tablespoon of coconut oil. So I'm going to put the coconut oil in there. And I only have 1 medium onion and like half of another onion. So I'm going to just split the onion in half that I have between the sauce and the stir fry. So there goes my coconut oil for my onion. And I'm going to use my food processor because I want my onion to be chopped up pretty small because I don't want my children to pick it out, and they're very picky. So when I'm cooking dinner, I tend to keep a trash bag or some sort of trash receptacle near me because I just think it's convenient to have a place to put your trash instead of having to walk back and forth from wherever your trash can is. Let me peel my onion. So again, if you just happened upon this, I'm Elizabeth from OurPaleoFamily.com, and I'm making Paleo Egg Roll in a bowl tonight. And it's 5:30 where I am on the East Coast, and we're hoping to eat about 6 o'clock. So this is actually going to be our dinner tonight. And I've never made this recipe before. I was trying to wait to do this video until I had planned a meal that I was really good at, kind of one of our family favorites. But everything I've been making lately has been new stuff. So I just thought, what the heck, I'll just go ahead and make something new. So there's my onion in half. And I've got my regular just chopping up blade in my food processor. And we'll just run it through really fast. Whoops, uh-oh. Yeah, that's right. It got kind of slushy. I kind of overdid it, but I wanted the whole thing to be chopped up really finely. I'm going to put half of this in my sauce, my sweet and sour sauce. and half of it in my vegetables for my stir fry. So, I'm going to get my onions in here for my sweet and sour sauce. In the recipe, she says to cook that for about 5 minutes, and then you add the rest of the sauce ingredients. Oh, excuse me, I got to sneeze. So I'm going to actually move this. Well, I'll leave it there for just a minute. I'm going to switch this out. I'm going to cook my meat in this pan, and I'm going to cook my cabbage in that pan. This recipe says for the egg roll in a bowl to cook the cabbage and the onions and your other vegetables, and then to just add your meat to that. But I don't like that because I like my onions to be cooked really well. And I thought the meat, sometimes when I get my ground pork from Whole Foods, sometimes it's really lean, like you have to add a little oil to it, and sometimes it's really fatty. And so I don't want to just put a whole bunch of fatty meat in there, so I'm going to cook my meat separately, actually, and add that in. So the first thing she says to do is you add the oils to the skillet, 2 tablespoons of coconut oil. I'll probably put in a little bit less than that, and 2 tablespoons of sesame oil. So here goes my sesame oil. And then we're going to add, she says add the cabbage, the onion, and the carrots, and cook until tender, 15 to 30 minutes. So that's a wide range. I'm going to get my onions in there first, and then I'll work on the other stuff. So here's my onion all chopped up already. If you have any questions, please ask. I'll try to remember to look over at my phone and see if you have any questions. I'll try to answer those. So that's really wet with the way I chopped up my onion. And I see a couple big chunks that didn't get chopped up in my food processor. So I'm going to pull those out. And I'm just going to chop them real fast on my cutting board. So you could totally do all this chopping just with a knife on the board, but I have this food processor, and I actually rearranged my cupboards a couple years ago so that I could get to some of my appliances a little bit easier, and one of them that I wanted easy access to was the food processor, because it makes things so fast, but if you can't get to it and you can't get it out easily, then you won't use it. So this is the shredding blade, and I'm going to use this for my carrots and my cabbage, because she says I got my oils in there, I need to add my large head of cabbage, I have the onion and the carrots already. So here's my head of cabbage. If you have not already been to my website, ourpaleofamily.com, and subscribed, that would be a great thing to do. That way you'll get a notice in your email box when I post a new recipe or just anything fun. And also like my Facebook page, and if you share this video, that would be great. I would love it. I'm definitely a newbie still in the paleo sphere, and I think my recipes are pretty good. So I would love it if you would share them with your friends, even though this is not my recipe. I said before, this came from Jay's Baking Me Crazy. So I do try a lot of new recipes that are from other people, and I'll usually follow their recipe the first time, or at least mostly, and then I'll make tweaks so it suits our taste. Okay, so everything is going over here. I can see that my rice broth is really boiling, so let me add my rice. I'm a really bad example when it comes to measuring, but I've cooked for a long time, so I can kind of eyeball a lot of stuff. And some things you don't really have to measure. It's okay. With rice, you pretty much want 2-to-1 liquid to rice. So I can pour my rice in and know that that's about the right amount. And if it's not, say I put in a little too little rice, it would be too brothy. And I would just take the lid off and let some more of the liquid cook off. And if it was too brothy. If I added too much rice and it had absorbed all the liquid, and the rice still wasn't done, I just add a little bit of water or some more broth. So it's not a big deal if I didn't get it exactly right. I'd rather guess and have to make a couple corrections down the road than bother with measuring. So in here I have my coconut oil, sesame oil, and onion. And these onions, even though the grocery store, they're labeled as sweet, they are not very sweet. They've been really pungent this whole past year. And I just don't like to eat a real pungent onion. So if you cook them, they'll get real sweet and delicious. And that's what I'm going for. This one is cooking up a little bit faster. This is my sweet and sour sauce. This is my egg roll in a bowl. So I'm about to shred my cabbage. Okay, I cored it. Got my shredding disc in there. Another reason to use your food processor for this is that cabbage and cauliflower are the worst, in my opinion, for just getting everywhere. When you chop them, they just go everywhere. People that say to make cauliflower rice and to actually grate it on a grater, like a cheese grater like this, if you take a head of cauliflower, raw cauliflower, and you go like this, it will be all over your kitchen and you'll be cleaning it up for weeks. So this is a good way to keep the cabbage contained. Okay, so a little bit escaped, but that wasn't bad. So I'm actually going to have to, I think I'm going to have to take this out because, oh no, there's more space. I need to shred my carrots, and the cabbage is hogging all the space in there, but I just made some room. Let me see how we're doing with our onions for our sweet and sour sauce. They're doing okay. They need to cook some more. All right, these are starting to look good. Some of the water is evaporating out. They're looking brown, but that's only because there's sesame oil in there. Okay, so I have my whole head of cabbage. She said a large head, but that was probably sort of a smallish head, but they were all the same size at my grocery store. Let me wash my carrots real quick. Okay, we'll put that in too. We'll just put it to the side. Carrots are super fast. This is what I first used my food processor for, was making carrot cake, shredding the carrots for carrot cake. Because the food processor does it so fast. I'm going to put all 3 of these guys in here at once. There you go. And there will be these little tips that didn't get shredded, but that's okay. I can just cut them off with my knife. And by the time I'm done with all of this, then I'll be ready to start adding this to my pan. So my game plan here is to get all my ingredients in the pot for the sweet and sour sauce, and then put that back on my simmer burner. Then I'll start my meat up here on this front one because it's a bigger burner. And this guy's really full, so I don't know if I'm going to fit all of this in the skillet, but we'll see. So I'm assuming it's going to cook down a ton. Okay, these are starting to really brown. I had that on high. So let me crank that down a little bit. And these onions for my sweet and sour sauce are starting to brown. So let me get all my ingredients in there for that sauce. So we have our onion, and we have coconut oil, and I need 3 cloves of garlic. And I don't know about you, but sometimes I feel like I get a head of garlic, and all the cloves are really big, and then all of them are really small. So this one, I happen to pull out 3, and I would say that they're all medium-sized, which is nice. So I'm going to chop these up. I don't have to be real careful and chop them really, really small because I'm going to blend up my sauce at the end. So just give them a decent little chop. And then what else goes in? 1/2 teaspoon of salt and 1/4 teaspoon of pepper. There goes my garlic. I need a measuring spoon. 1/2 teaspoon of salt and 1/4 teaspoon of pepper. Okay. This one doesn't work for some reason. There we go. This is 1/2 teaspoon in my hand, so I'll just fill it up about halfway. And 1/2 teaspoon of salt. I feel like I need to put some salt in those vegetables, but it doesn't say it in the instructions, so I won't do it just yet. Salt, pepper, a whole can of crushed pineapple, and this is, sometimes the pineapple is in, oops, oh, that's not good. The pineapple is in like a syrup, and you don't want it in syrup, you just want it in its own juice. See, I don't know if this will open, since I broke the little top thing. That might be sort of a crisis. Alright, this is probably not the safest thing to do, but I'm going to have to use a knife, I think, to pry it open. I never had that happen before. The little pop-toppy thing came off. Okay, there's some space in there, so let's see. Let me try with a fork first instead of a knife. Hey! We got it. Woo! Okay, so a whole can, 8 ounces of pineapple. Okay. And then 1/2 to 3/4 of a cup of bone broth. This is 3/4, so I'm going to put most of that in. We might need to add a little bit more to thin it out. 1/4 cup of tomato paste. This one should cooperate a little bit better for me. Okay, so if you just joined us, I'm Elizabeth Hines from OurPaleoFamily.com, and I'm making egg roll in a bowl tonight, and I'm actually just cooking dinner for my family right now, so you're following along. Maybe you're cooking along with me. That would be fun. I'm inspired by a Food Network show that was on a long time ago. I think it was called Cooking Live with Sarah Moulton, I believe. And you were supposed to follow along with her, and people would call in and ask questions. I thought that was sort of fun. So we're making our sweet and sour sauce. Is that what it is? Sweet and sour? Yeah, a paleo sweet and sour sauce. I have crushed tomatoes, onions, not crushed tomatoes, crushed pineapple, tomato paste, garlic, onion, coconut oil. I need 2 tablespoons of coconut aminos, and then 2 dates. You don't want 2 dates on Valentine's Day. You only want 1 date on Valentine's Day. But in your sweet and sour sauce, you want 2 dates. So here is my coconut aminos, and I can really smell the sesame oil that the onions are cooking in over there. Okay, so I'm going to need this burner in just a minute for my meat, but I'm going to let this get going. This is my sweet and sour sauce, and then we'll move it back to the simmer burner. Okay, so back to our egg roll in a bowl. There's our onion, and here comes cabbage and carrots. There's a whole head of cabbage. I might have to let that cook down for a minute and then add more. And I didn't add the whole amount of oil at the beginning, so if I need to add a little bit more oil, I can. But once I add the salt, I'm sure there's some salt in this recipe somewhere. When I add the salt, that'll help start to draw the liquid out of the vegetables. Okay, so let me just see what is going on next over here. I have coconut oil, sesame oil, cabbage, onion. Let me put this in so I don't forget it. This is the rest of my carrot and cabbage that I had to chop up. And I think I need to put some ginger and garlic in there. Oh no, I add the ginger and the garlic after that has all cooked down. But there's no salt in this recipe, and I'm thinking it's maybe because the amino has a lot of salt in it. It's not really super salty. You know what? I'm going to taste it. Actually, I've never actually just tasted the aminos plain. It's a little salty. It's not salty like soy sauce is salty. So I'm probably going to add a little salt to this because this is a lot of vegetables. And you know, it's a real fresh vegetable. It doesn't have any seasoning. And also, like I said before, it'll help that start to cook down. So kind of stir that in. And I'll put in some more of my cabbage. And this guy, I'm going to move back to my simmer burner. I'm going to turn it up as high as it goes for now. And then this one is going to start my meat. But let me check on my rice real quick and see how it's coming along. Make sure I didn't grossly mismeasure. That's looking pretty good. So I know rice isn't paleo. The rice is a good whole food. And it's a grain that actually even I, with my Crohn's disease, can eat some of. And it doesn't bother me. And my husband with type 1 diabetes has to be careful with his carb intake. And so if I feed him this meal that's basically just vegetables and a little bit of meat, his blood sugar will probably crash a little bit after dinner. So, and I'm trying to get him to not eat as many sweets. So we'll fix him a little rice. And the kids love rice. Of course, it's good for them and their growing bodies. They can use those extra carbs. So let me scoot that over. I'm going to put a little bit more cabbage in. And then I'm going to get my meat in this skillet, and my cameraman's going to have to move because it's in the refrigerator. So the meat, you could use ground beef, you could use ground turkey, ground chicken. The ground pork is traditionally what they use in an egg roll at a Chinese restaurant, and that's the flavor I'm trying to copy with this recipe. So that's what we got. And like I said earlier, sometimes for the ground pork, this is just from the Meat Taste at Whole Foods. Sometimes it's really lean, sometimes it's really fatty. So that's why I'm cooking it separately. Plus, in the recipe I'm following, she said to do all your vegetables and then to add your meat. And I just thought that would take too long. And look how full my skillet is. I mean, I know it's really going to cook down, but I couldn't conceive of putting 1.5 pounds of meat in there on top of all of these veggies. So that looks really good, doesn't it? It's pretty. It's a little bit browned. It smells really good. So let me just break this up a little bit. I didn't put any oil in this pan because there's some fat in here. I can see it. And if it is at the end, if there's a lot of like brown caramelized bits of meat on the bottom of the pan, I'll use a little bit of my broth to deglaze my pan. I'll get up all that flavor to add to our mixture, and it'll be really delicious, I'm sure. So again, I can't just let that meat cook with no seasoning on it whatsoever. So I'm going to sprinkle on a little bit of pepper. Again, this isn't in the recipe, but it's what I want to do. I'm making it my own. So just about 1/4 teaspoon of sea salt. You can always add more. So this is on almost high. I really want to get the rest of my cabbage in that pan over there so it can start cooking down. So let me see if I can get more of this in there. I feel like it's barely even cooking, but I think it's because I have all 4 burners going at the same time. We're not huge cabbage lovers in this house. We like coleslaw. That's about it. So we did really love egg rolls back in the day when we could eat gluten. So I'm hoping it will be a hit. Cabbage and cauliflower and broccoli are not our favorite vegetables, but the more we eat them, I think the more we like them. I try to find ways to prepare them that everybody enjoys. Let me stir this in, and I'll run over to my phone and see if we have any comments. And then I'm going to taste my sauce. We're supposed to cook the sauce for about 5 minutes, which it's certainly cooked for 5 minutes, and then blend it, and then continue to cook it. So I have to say, it looks really good. My dates were really dry, so they could certainly stand to have a few extra minutes of rehydrating time. Okay, so crank that really high. This doesn't fit on here, but I'm still going to like smush it down on there and let it steam a little bit, and it will just sort of speed up that cooking process. So we've been going for about 25 minutes, and at this rate, we're at least 20 minutes still from dinner, and I want to see if I can get it done a little bit faster. I don't want to put the lid on my meat because I don't want to steam my meat. So another reason I'm cooking my meat separately is because I really do kind of like it to be caramelized. And I thought if I followed the recipe and put the meat in the pan with my already cooked vegetables, there's probably going to be some moisture in that pan, and it would get cooked, but it would not get caramelized. And that's the flavor that I like. So that's kind of what I'm going for here. Okay, so let's make sure I have done everything properly. Let's see. Okay, I don't have any comments. Y'all, if you're watching, comment and tell me how yummy this sounds. So we're going to put in 1 inch of ginger grated and 3 garlic cloves and 1/4 cup of aminos. And so I'm going to work on my garlic and my ginger while all that stuff is just cooking over there. So this clove is pretty small, these two. So these are going to make 1 clove total. And then I need 2 more. Now this is just going in my stir fry, so it's not going to get blended up like the garlic that was in my sweet and sour sauce. So I am going to have to take a minute, and don't be lazy, and really chop it up. I could put it back in the food processor since it's out already, but I'm not. I have time, so I'll just sit here and chop it. Now, if I weren't cooking for you live, what I would also be doing right now is the dishes. So while I'm cooking, any free second I have, I don't usually sit down and do something else. I'll just stand here and clean up my mess as I go along, because my husband always does the dishes when I cook. Well, almost always. And so to make it easier, so he can get to more stuff at night, or, just have more family time in general, I will clean up as I go. Plus, I'm already here, and I don't like a messy kitchen, so I'm more comfortable in the kitchen if it's clean. So it's a win-win-win if I clean as I go. But because you're here, I'm not going to do the dishes while I'm cooking, so you don't have to watch the back of my head washing the dishes. And this is like one of those little root ends of the garlic, and it's not getting chopped up, so I'm going to just take him out of there. So I have seen on cooking shows where they put salt on their garlic, and then they use the side of their knife to kind of smush it and really make it into a paste. But I've never really had success with that, so I just run my knife through it a few times, chop, 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 and get it as small as I can. And then I need my 1 inch piece of ginger, which you can see where I broke it off at the grocery store because you pay for this by the pound, and it was a really big piece, and I didn't need that big of a piece, so I just broke off what I wanted. And you can even use a spoon to sort of peel this papery skin off, but I'm sitting right here with my knife, so I'm going to use my knife. Make sure it's totally nothing yucky in there. It smells so good. If you like fresh ginger or the flavor of ginger at all, maybe you've only ever used like the powdered ginger in a gingerbread cookie, you have to try fresh ginger. It's really, really good. Very fresh and a little bit spicy. I love it. Okay. I can see that we did steam a little bit, and I don't really know what the intention is here. Is it just to cook most of the liquid out, Or are we trying to get a little brown on it like a stir fry? Her instructions just say until tender. So I'm thinking it's probably pretty close to tender now. So looking at my meat, I think about the time my meat is done, my veggies will be good. I'm going to have to taste here in a minute and see how we're doing with seasoning. I might put my garlic and ginger and aminos and everything in a little earlier than the recipe indicates. I think if you had a wok, this would be easier because, you know, it has the really high sides. It'd be easy to get a lot in there. Okay, this is my meat spoon. I'm going to crank this one up to high and see if we can get it to start browning. And look, it's pretty lean. Can you see? I mean, that's some liquid and there's a little bit of fat in there, but there's not very much. So by the time I let this brown, most of that is just water. It's not fat, and it will evaporate out. So I don't need to worry about straining out the fat or anything. I'll be able to just dump this right into my cabbage mixture. I'm trying to break up the last couple little clumps. Make sure it's cooked in the middle. Make sure it's all cooked all the way through. Then it'll start browning. And you know, when you eat an egg roll, the pork is in really small, really small pieces in there. Okay, so let me find a relatively clean spoon and give my sweet and sour sauce a taste. That looks really good, doesn't it? While I'm waiting to taste it, I'm going to make sure I don't have any comments. I don't see any, but sometimes, you know what, I don't know how to use the Facebook invention. And sometimes they show up late. So anyway, I don't see any comments right now. But thank you for watching if you're watching. So I can really taste the pineapple. And I'm not the hugest fan of pineapple. But it's real savory too, I think, with the aminos and the tomato paste. I think that's going to be really yummy. So I'm going to try to blend it up. I want to move it over here so it's easier for you to see. There's my garlic and my ginger. I'll chop my ginger in just a minute. But I'm going to move my pot over here. And I thought that might be hot. And blend up my sauce with my immersion blender. Let me just give everything a stir real fast. I know I'm all over the place and I'm kind of driving my cameraman crazy. There, my rice is looking really good. It looks perfect. It's brown like that because I cooked it in this nice, rich chicken broth. It tastes so good. If you do not cook your rice, if you eat rice and you don't cook it in chicken broth, promise me you will try that because it's so delicious. Or you could use beef, any kind of bone broth that you have. And actually, if you don't make your own broth, it's really, really easy. On my YouTube channel, I have a video about how to do it in the Instant Pot. But I talk about how to do it on the stove, too. And the recipe on my blog, I think I called it Magical Bone Broth. It is a recipe for just making your broth on the stove without any special equipment, not in the crock pot or Instant Pot or anything like that. So I would suggest that you make your own broth. Woo! It tastes good. It's full of nutrients, really, really good for your skin, your hair, the lining of your digestive tract. It tastes good. It's comforting, especially in the wintertime. If you're sick, and we know lots and lots of people that are sick right now. We're so thankful that we have not gotten the flu or the stomach virus. I mean, that's looking really good and tender to me. So I'm going to go ahead and add the rest of my ingredients because I think it's time. So I need 1/4 cup of that aminos. Coconut aminos is our paleo substitute for soy sauce. Because we don't eat legumes, they can be really inflammatory. So it's 1/4 cup of aminos and my garlic. And I need to deal with my ginger. I'll show you how I'm going to do that. So here's the garlic. And the ginger, you want a small piece of garlic. Well, most people don't want to bite into a really big piece of garlic. You don't want to bite into a big piece of ginger because it can be spicy, especially for kids. For adults, it's not that big of a deal, but if you don't like the people you're feeding dinner to anyway. But if you like the people you're feeding dinner to, you're going to want to grate your ginger really small. This is a microplane. I actually link to it on my website. I have a resources page up at the very top, and it links to some of my favorite, well, all of my favorite kitchen tools and ingredients. And this microplane I use all the time. It's really great for sometimes if you just want to grate a garlic clove, so you get, essentially you would end up with garlic juice, and you really just get the essence of garlic, and then nobody is definitely going to bite into a piece of garlic. I love it for ginger because it grates it really, really fine. You can grate an onion. You can do Parmesan cheese. It's great for that. Zesting citrus, we use it for that all the time. I use my microplane, honestly, almost every day. I think it costs about $10. It's a great tool to add to your kitchen. It doesn't cost a lot. And I'm getting down to the end, so I got to be careful that I don't grate my fingers. I don't have long fingernails, so they're not going to get grated in there. And then you want to kind of whack it because it's stuck in there. You want to get it out. Okay. So my ginger is out. I can tell my meat is browning. This is what I want. I'm just stirring this up so it browns evenly. It's not burning, it's caramelizing, which means it's bringing out the natural sugars, and it adds flavor. It will be really, really good. Same thing with this, what you see on this skillet. If it's brown, that's good. That's caramelization of the vegetables, and that is a good way to get veggie haters to eat their vegetables, because when you bring out the sweetness in the vegetables, it's just more appealing to almost everybody, especially kids. And actually, we started in this house really eating a lot more vegetables and enjoying them when I started roasting vegetables. I'm pretty sure I have a recipe for just roasted veggies on the blog. Basically, all you do is turn your oven on to 400 to 450. Kind of depends if you have something else in there that needs to cook at a specific temperature. And a little bit of oil on a sheet pan. Chop your vegetables to approximately the same size and put them in there and roast them for about 20 to 30 minutes. Stir them about halfway through. They'll get nice and brown on the outside, and they're really, really tasty. Everybody in my house loves them. It's a good way to use up 1 carrot, 1 zucchini. You just have a little bit of veggies laying around at the end of the week. Just make a big pan of mixed up roasted veggies. Okay, so my meat's looking good, so I turned that down a little bit. I turned that down a little bit. Now I'm going to blend up my sauce, which seems really yummy. Let's see, what can I unplug? I'll plug the food processor. And this is an immersion blender or a stick blender. And that handle is still really hot, so I just stick this right in. Let's see while I'm doing this. Everybody, I hope you're cooking dinner for your family right now. If you don't catch this live, we'll put it up on our Facebook or our YouTube page, and you'll be able to watch it later. But I'm really encouraged, just having tasted the sauce. I'm thinking it's pretty good. It's looking like I've chopped it up, but I think my dates are probably not chopped. So I'm going to try to find my dates and set my blender right on top of them. So I think it's really thin, but again, I can't tell if the date is chopped up in there. Let me give it one more go. Okay, so there's a little bit of date that I didn't get chopped up, then somebody will just get the prize. And always make sure before you clean that thing off that you unplug it, because it's really easy to push the buttons and you don't want your fingers or a fork or something down in here and you accidentally turn the blade on. That would not be fun. Okay, so that goes over here. I can see I've got cabbage all over my kitchen, which is kind of driving me crazy. This is pretty thick. I mean, that's really thick. So I think I am going to add just a touch more of this broth and turn my heat back on to, that's my simmer burner, so it's a really low burner, so I have it on about between medium and medium high. And it looks nice and rich, doesn't it? I'm really excited about this. I'm going to give it another taste. It's really good. It has a lot of flavor. Let me taste the veggies. This is the part I'm scared about. It could either be really good or really bland, because it's a lot of cabbage. Okay, it's good. I would probably add a little bit more ginger for my taste, or maybe add a little ginger to the sauce, but it's really good. It's actually really, really good. So let me show you what I do with the meat. We're really close to being ready here. So I've got some browned bits on the bottom. So I'm going to add my meat in here, the bulk of it, just so I can kind of get to the bottom of the skillet. I'm going to turn the heat up on my skillet. I'm going to pour that broth in. And that broth will help to loosen up all those little bits off the bottom. And it's not that much liquid. It's not going to really affect the consistency of my dish. As a matter of fact, most of it will evaporate by the time I get ready to pour it into the skillet over there. It's sort of magical. You can do this with anything. It works best with a regular stainless steel pan instead of a non-stick pan, because you can really scrape at the bottom. And I'm always afraid to do that with my non-stick pans because they're kind of fragile. Okay, so there I got most of that. And then, of course, we deglazed with broth, which is just adding more flavor, which is good. You don't want to add something to your dish that's not going to add any flavor. So let me grab a hot pad out of here so I can set this down. And I'm going to try to stir that in, which is going to be really funny. Oh, I just went off over here. Let me turn it back on in case somebody comes and leaves me a comment at the end. I feel like somebody I know has to be watching. In-laws, maybe I'm looking at you. I'm sure somebody is watching and you're not commenting. So it'd be really nice if you would comment. So I'm going to stir this together. Does it look like the inside of an egg roll to you? It looks like the inside of an egg roll to me. And it looks like we're going to be eating this for 3 weeks. This looks like a lot of food. But it is almost entirely vegetables. So it we might be able to eat a whole lot of it before we feel full. This is looking really good, and my sauce looks really good. And like I said, we're going to serve this over a little bit of rice. So I just need to taste it with everything in there. That's looking a little gross. It really tastes like an egg roll. It's really good. So, this is from Jay's Baking Me Crazy is the name of the website. And Paleo Egg Roll in a bowl. And let's see, the only thing I changed was I added a little salt and pepper. I cooked my meat separately, which I would highly recommend unless you have a gigantic pan. If you had a wok, I can see how that would work really well because you can cook your vegetables or your meat. You can kind of push it up onto the sides and then cook down in the bottom. But without a wok, you can't do that. I would definitely cook it in 2 separate pans. And the sauce, I made it exactly according to her recipe. I did cook my onion a little bit longer in both cases before I added the other things. But that's it. This is delicious, and we are excited to eat. So thank you for joining me. If you would like for me to do more of these cooking along with me live is fun. I'm cooking anyway, and I'm talking to myself anyway, so I might as well be talking to you while I'm cooking. So happy dinner, everybody.